Caolan, excellent. Tell me, there's worrying news coming out. Tell me more. You're closer to this than I am.
Well, Putin doesn't want the US to give the Ukraine the ability to defend itself. And he knows that the West is actually going to allow this country to defend itself. And he's trying to stop that from happening by fear mongering and scaring everybody in the West. This is working for people on the hard left and the hard right who think that Ukraine should fall, who are siding with Russia for a number of reasons. But these are empty threats and it's nonsense. Putin is saying that it is going to be an act of war if Ukraine is allowed to fire international missiles into their airspace. Well, there have been international missiles fired into the airspace of this country consistently, even today, for months. They are coming from North Korea. Now they're going to be coming from Iran. They've been
Yes.
coming from a multitude of countries, and World War III hasn't started. And it's absolutely no different to what he's doing, where those weapons are coming from, where those weapons are manufactured. So this is just a fear-mongering load of nonsense. And I imagine as soon as we wake up tomorrow morning as well, there's going to be things from Trump, there's going to be things on the hard right saying that this is nuclear war, this is World War III. Well, if Putin would if Putin was in any way serious about his threats to obliterate the Earth with nuclear weapons because ballistic missiles are entering his airspace, then he would have done it when this country was consistently firing drones into places like Moscow and air bases and oil refineries in Russia, which has been happening for months, rightfully. So there isn't any fear. Putin isn't about to turn the world into a pile of ash. He would have done it by now if he was upset about things hitting Moscow and clear places. And he's trying to sabotage the deal.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we have to put this in context. This all goes back to a policy that was rolled out in, I think, 2020, which said that if Russia is attacked, it will respond with nuclear weapons. And I think there have been various people like Sergei Ryabkov who've tried to either develop this or pull back from this. But in the end, this is about the fact that Russia is running out of genuine weapons and anything else to throw at people. And they've got this huge nuclear arsenal, and it's sitting there looking pretty. It's 1,500 operational warheads, and I think 5,800 useless weapons, which probably wouldn't work.
No.
But they're talking about two things, and they're talking specifically, which I think is designed to make us anxious. They're talking specifics. They're talking about, and this is something which has been peddled for a good while now. They're talking about attacking Britain with a hypersonic missile attack, or with this Poseidon weapon, which still hasn't been trialed. They're also talking about staging some sort of Independence Day style hit on a plywood mock-up of London and Washington in the Arctic, which is all extraordinary. But Russia is not doing well at the moment. Last night you were talking about the number of air raids. I've looked it up. There were 64 drones released by Russia, of which 44 were shot down. There were also apparently 5 missiles, and there doesn't seem to be any evidence of whether they were shot down or whether they hit their targets. Do you have any further?
There's a lot of stuff that's been thrown into the skies of Ukraine at the moment, but Russia are actually running out of their weapons. This is why they've had to sign a new deal with Iran. There's a lot of noise in the air at the moment, but Ukraine is getting better at defending itself. They're developing a lot of their own air defense systems, and Putin is now trying to scare and fearmonger because that's actually all he has left. He isn't even in a position with enough weaponry to take back Kursk, which is in the east of this country. It's been invaded for 4 weeks so far by Ukrainians, and they're so low on ammo, basically, that they can't even take back an incursion into their own country. So they're getting desperate, and this is an act of desperation, and people should see it as that. They should see it as someone who is a coward, who's Putin. Putin knows that if he fires a nuclear weapon into Europe, that there's going to be thousands sent back, and he'll be obliterated. Putin's a coward, and he's not going to do anything like that.
Yes, but Putin may not. Putin may no longer be there. This is not the Putin that we knew about 10 years ago was a dynamic and quick-thinking individual who was quite impressive. The Putin that we now hear of, first of all, we don't really see him, and secondly, what we see looks very different to the Putin from long ago. I am not convinced this is the same man, number one. But number two, even if it is the same man, this is a man who has gone mad. This is a man who has staggered into the twilight of sanity. And that is not necessarily something to crow about for the West. That is something to worry about.
Well, there's also a system in Russia that's different to the United States system where Putin actually can't press a nuclear button. There's a chain of command of 20 other people that would need to approve that. And most of the people around Putin right now wouldn't do that. So they're actually, even if you take him out of the equation, it is actually impossible for nukes to be leaving Moscow and arriving into the airspaces of the United States and Britain. It isn't going to happen. They can fearmonger on, their Russia Today programs about it, and they can do nice graphics about London being taken over with a ballistic missile or a hyper supersonic missile. Yeah. But they're not going to do it. They haven't, and they won't. And they're getting desperate. They're getting nervous. So that's what this is about. But it's good to remember and to know this, because it's going to cause anxiety for a lot of people to read headlines about nuclear war and World War III. It's not true. It's a desperate man with desperate measures who has nothing left but try to make people scared. And that's all this is. If Putin really wanted to use those weapons in London, why hasn't he used those in Ukraine? He hasn't used the type of absolutely monstrous weapons that you've just described that they threatened over London in this country. And this is the country where they're allowed to do basically whatever they want. And finally, from a moral standpoint, this is the largest country in Europe by landmass, and it's having missiles put into it from basically all over the East. And there is still an anxiety to not let it defend itself. And this is the minimum 101 moral code that leaders need to have, is to, for the first time, have some courage. We didn't do it in 2014 when Putin took Crimea. We didn't do it at the beginning of this full invasion. We didn't do it when they were using basically chemical warfare against people on the soils of Britain. And they didn't do it when they were putting propaganda out into our airwaves, messing with our elections. So for the first time, the West actually needs to be strong against Russia, not listen to this fear-mongering propaganda, and allow this country to fire those missiles first thing tomorrow morning.
Yes, well, I think the other thing is, one's got to remember that Putin's attack in Salisbury was effectively a nuclear attack on foreign soil. And, Putin has behaved very, very badly. What we do in response is difficult to determine.
Well, we've done nothing in response for years and years, and that's why Putin goes on the airwaves and puts out statements saying, "Oh, I'm going to attack you. I'm going to kill you all," because he knows it works. Because we're so scared of him. But this is why he's been allowed to do what he's been doing to all of us.
Has Putin himself actually been on the air? Has Putin himself actually been seen saying this?
So he was the one that actually, he gave this statement in person to I would say they were a reporter, but they were, a Russia Today type person. But he said this, within the hour in Moscow from his own mouth, because he basically has to at this point.
So you saw him on television saying this?
Yeah, there's a video of him saying it. We can play it on here now.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, this is what's going to be going viral over the next evening and morning tomorrow, is people using that to say, "Oh, all right, we should let Ukraine fall because Putin's scaring us all again. We should let him take Kyiv eventually and then watch him do the same to Poland and go west and west and west, because he'll just threaten to nuke us if we do anything." That's it. Anytime that Russia does anything, he threatens us, and then we get too scared to respond. Well, that needs to end now. This is the end of this. It needs to end today. And hopefully Blinken will carry on, because there's rumors saying that he will allow this country to do that within the next few hours. And this is why.
Well, the rumor that I've heard is that a decision has been taken in principle and in private already, and that decision is likely to involve shorter range missiles, but not the longer range missiles.
It would still be devastating because a lot, even within the first 100-kilometer range between the border of Ukraine and Russia, there is a lot of key military stuff that Russia probably will not be able to rebuild quickly enough and will be seriously damaging. Putin knows that these conversations are happening and he's trying to scupper them now. He's trying to scare James cleverly. He's trying to scare the Democrats. He's trying to scare everyone and hope it doesn't work. Because it is that. It's just fear. It's what's always worked. It's what Putin's always done to the West. It's made everyone scared. But hopefully this is the first time we'll not listen to it.
Well, he's dealing with in Britain, of course, he's dealing with a party that's only just come into power, and I suppose it's rather than James Cleverly, it would be David Lammy that he's scaring. But yes, I would be scared.
There, yeah.
I would certainly be scared, but I think I think your advice is very sound.
Yeah, he's not going to declare World War III on Britain. No one's going to die in Britain because of this. He's already been at war with us for 20 years, and he knows that he's got away with it because we listened to his threats. And now's the time to not do that anymore. He knows that he will die and everyone in Russia will die the second a nuke takes off from Moscow into our airspace. He knows that. That's why it hasn't happened. It can't happen anyway. So it's empty threats. It's complete nonsense, but it's going to go viral and make the airwaves. And yeah, the Democrats are scared. They're about to leave office. They're about to go through it to an election. And if they see any kind of escalation, they know that Trump's going to bounce on that. Well, there isn't going to be an escalation. There isn't. Putin is not going to do what he's threatened to do in his propaganda media channels. And it's the first time we have to start listening to that.
Yes. Okay. We will talk later.
Okay.
Caolan, thank you very much.